Hey guys, let's get started with setting up the API project. I'm going to build a stores API using Laravel, and I'm going to include a framework called Dingo for that. It's still in the development, and I feel this is one of the best frameworks which is available to be integrated with Laravel even now. But then I see that there are already some discontinuation messages being available here. But then I think they are going to maintain it in a different repo right now. It's created a fork, and then the same contributors are going to maintain it there. That's what I hear. It's called API ecosystem for Laravel. That's where they're going to maintain it. So let's get started with including, or at least creating, the Laravel project for Stores API to begin with. So for that, if you don't know how to create a project, or at least add dependencies relevant for Laravel or any PHP project, you need to have a Composer installed. So I already have Composer installed globally within my Mac, so I'm going to use that. If not yet, just go to composer.org and try to see how to get started with Composer. So if you already have it installed, then you can maybe start with saying Composer. Maybe let me go to the folder, cd my work folder, and I'm gonna go to a folder called Laravel, and I already have a shopping project. But then for this tutorial sake, I'm gonna go to a tutorials project, and within that I have a shopping stores API folder available, and within that I have an episode one folder. So I think, yeah, I'm there. So this is where I'm going to create the first Composer. This is where I'm going to create the project. Composer create project, which is a Laravel project. So I just need to say Laravel, and then I just need to say which is the project I'm building now. I'm going to call it stores API. Stores API. That's my project. So I should start including my Laravel project, which is right now at version 8.x, I guess. So it should start off. Yes, it's including 8.6.10 as a version, and that's pretty much it. So it includes all the dependencies needed, and the framework is ready. So that's it. So my Laravel project is right now available. Let me go to that folder, cd stores API, and then let me run and see whether it's working or not. PHP artisan is the command line tool to execute different tasks which is needed. Let's say if you want to run a server, if you want to create new controllers, routes, and anything, or even models, then you need to use artisan. So I can do a PHP artisan serve. It should run in 8001 because 8000 I'm already running a database which I was using for testing. So this is where it's going to run right now. Let's see whether it's running or Laravel project is working or not. So web is up. So we can see 8001 is where the web is running. So next part is to start including the Dingo framework, which, like I mentioned. So for that, I need to go and include this Composer require. That's the next step. Maybe I'm going to stop the current instance of server running, and then I'm going to do maybe even before that, let me open this in code. So that's my project. It's running, and I'm already opened it in code, and I can go to maybe the terminal. I can open a terminal. How do I terminal, and then maybe I can do the Composer here to include the Dingo framework. So for including, I need to say require API ecosystem. I'm going to use the new fork which is available instead of the old one, Dingo, because I think they are discontinuing that, and then new progress is going to happen here. So I'm going to use that for Laravel Dingo API, and then I also need to mention the version. So maybe I'm gonna go with 3.1.1 is the latest, I guess. If you can check out their releases, Hopefully this is the version they are maintaining. Maybe let me just have a quick peek into the version that I had included in the other project which I'm building still, which is a working project which I will make available in Patreon pretty soon enough after this episode. Early access for everyone. So I'm just trying out to see in the composer. The Dingo version I'm using is 3.0.0, so maybe that's the version. I'll just mention it as 3.0.0 so that it can pick up the latest version available. So after I do that, it's picking up installing Dingo. Yep. So let's go to our composer and see. So it's 3.0.0 and the version which would have gotten included could be, yeah, it's 3.1.1, which is available, which is I think the latest version which is there. I'm going to use that. So now Dingo is available. So we need to start configuring Dingo. The first step is to, let's go to the documentation and just go through step by step. Installation is done. We should have picked up the latest version, which is done. And next step is to publish the configuration needed for Dingo. So PHP artisan vendor publish we do. And this is very specific to Dingo, so let's pick that up. Dingo provider is Laravel service provider, Dingo 1. Go there, enter. It should ideally create the api.php within the config.php. Let's go there. So I can just say api.php, it's available. So it should ideally show all those configuration that we need to do. So I'm going to pick this up one by one and then going to include within environment config. It already has lots of configuration keys available here. So along with that, I'm going to start adding the Dingo ones. So if you go to the documentations, I guess, okay, a couple of things are still needed. I need to add these facades. Maybe we could VND. VND is if you're maintaining a publicly available APIs, it goes as a VND, then otherwise it's X if it's like a private one. I guess in commercial one, you tag it with something else. That's a convention that is followed for creation of APIs within the industry. So I guess Dingo also allows that to work. So other part is I need to include a couple of facades within app.php. I'm going to go to app.php within configuration, and you can see the facades or the aliases are included over here. So I can do that even for Dingo. So first part is the Dingo API facade or the alias name which I can use, and I'm gonna grab this, or instead maybe I can just try to see what I have included in my existing project. App.php, maybe I can grab a couple of those, then quickly include that. So I have a Dingo API and a Dingo route created in those projects. I'm going to include those. So those are the two ones: Dingo API facade for API and Dingo API facade for the route. So as soon as I have included it, it becomes accessible in my code like either Dingo API or Dingo route. So that's one thing you can do. It's optional if you want to do. Let's continue with the configurations. This is done. Let's go to the configuration page of Dingo. It shows a different configuration like you need to do. This is already done. We have published this, because of which our api.php is available now. Like I said, the other part is to maintain what is the standard tree, whether it is VND, PRS or X, unregistered tree, personal tree if it is a private project, and commercially available. Not distributed commercially, I think. VND is, I'm just maintaining that, but I think these are conventions that you can just maintain within your project code base. Next part is API subtype. Let's go back to our api.php. api.php configurations, subtree I have added. My scroll is so fast. Let me just do this. Subtype, I don't need anything, I guess. I'm just gonna, but it says API subtype my app. So your subtype is typically a short name for your application or project over lowercase. Okay, maybe I'll do that then. So let me go back to my environment config and do that. Over here, I'm going to call it stores API or small case. Go back to my api.php app version, gonna maintain it as version 1. That's also done. Then go back to what else is needed, prefix. Maybe I'll do it as prefix. I'm going to keep it as API. Next part is did I do it right? I think I did it wrong. API prefix is what I need. That's the part. API prefix is API. Go back to the domain. I don't need a domain. I'll keep it null. API name, it again that same. Maybe I can do it in the capitals or something. Stores API is what I'm going to do. And then conditional request. This is more to do with when you're going for production, then maybe these things might be needed. Globally enable conditional request so that the e tag header is added to any successful response. Subsequent request will perform check and will return 304 not modified. This is also need to be enabled or disabled. So if you go to their specific documentation, conditional requests, by default conditional requests are enabled and it will utilize the client's caching capability. So it is more to do with caching API requests. If let's say these are maybe relevant for, let's say, if you're consuming some APIs which are returning your images or something, you need not go to the server all the time and grab it. I guess these are, you can enable it by default so that caching is done. And strict other part is API strict. If you want to include some headers, and if without those headers, if your request is going through, if you're making it strict, then your API requests are going to fail with the bad request. So if I'm just going to keep it false, the default, because in our case we don't have that requirement. At least an authentication provider, I'm going to use the JWT one, so I'm going to use that. So for that, let's include that library. I don't know how to pronounce this. Timon JWT auth is the library. Fantastic library. I've been using it for a long time, and then I'm going to use that for Laravel installation. I'm going to include the Timon composer again. You need to do a composer require this library. Timon JWT auth version, I think I will be using 1.0. Star, so that the latest version might be picked up. I'm gonna do that, include that, and that library is getting installed now. So that's also done. So I'm going to use that library because that is one of the configurations I'm going to do. I'm going to use JWT as the token. Also API debug I'm going to enable right now because I'm still in the development phase, so I need it to log at least the issues that is being shown in. So when you go to production, we might disable it, but then currently it's needed. And error format, I'm going to keep the default. Middleware we are going to add once we have that. I think I'll use that. Okay, Timon had one more requirement to publish the configuration, which I did not do yet. So even I need to add a provider for Timon auth. Let's do that as well. I'm going to go to app.php to within the providers. I'm going to add this guy over here. So that's also taken care. Now I need to publish the jwt.php configuration file. So for that, I need to do this API artisan vendor publish Timon. So that should ID give me a JWT. Let's see whether the JWT PHP is also created. So it needs a secret which we are going to generate, the private key and everything. So I'm going to generate the secret key which is needed. Enter. That should be saved. So if I go to my environment file, it's already there. So JWT, this is already auto generated, and this is what you can see one over here. So that's also created. So this is done. So our JWT configuration is done. and we are very close to having this API, or at least Dingo on Dingo library on Laravel almost there, ready. Rest of the some of the requirements, maybe if you look at middleware, what is the middleware that you want to go through? So this way we will start looking to when we enable login and everything, and even roles and permissions are needed when we will have to use a middleware for restricting some of the API calls. Let's say if an admin only can access some of the API call, at least consume some of the APIs, and restricted for, let's say, a store manager or a store owner, then it has to go through this middleware within a roles and permissions constraints. So that is needed. Auth, again, we already defined it, so I guess we might have to do this. Let me just see my existing file. Middleware auth is going to be JWT Dingo, so I'm going to include the JWT Dingo one for our auth. That's what we're going to use. So this is now, instead of the basic one, we are going to use JWT Dingo, the one which we included right now for any login or authorization. So that's also taken care. So this is fine. Throttling requirements are for so maybe for development. We are not looking into that, but then throttling, rate limiting is needed when you go for production, or even when it's going for a field test or something, because you can restrict the number of requests coming into your server, the number of API calls which is happening. Otherwise, it can lead to DOS, a denial of service, where your server can go down. So this is very critical when we are going for production. So I'm just going to keep it default, because it is going to be not used by many, I guess. So even if it goes down, it's not hampering any of the customers at my end. So that's all fine for me. So I'm just going to use that. Transformers, I'm going to use the fractal transformers. Again, that is used for modifying your response types. Like you're not going to directly send whatever the database is giving you. Instead, you might want to transform it and send it to your client. So that's something you'll be using. Rest all are generic stuff, like what is the JSON format in which whether you want to send us responses in the JSON format or not. All of that configuration is already done. So this is pretty much what in terms of configuration we need to do for setting up our API using Dingo. So that's done. Let's now go back to our Dingo stuff. I think providers we have set up. Let me also cross verify rate limiting as a requirement. You can even set it like something like this, rate limiter handler, within your app.php or somewhere, I guess. And this we have already done. So all of these requirements are taken care right now. Let's go to the next part, interesting part, which is creating our first endpoint. So for that, I'm going to go to the routes API, and even before that, there is a requirement which we need to complete within, I guess, JWT auth, which is to quick start. Let's go to quick start, and then you can see a couple of things needs to be done. You need to include a couple of functions within your user, and also implement JWT subject, so that this conforms to the JWT or the Timon JWT auth formats needed. So I'm going to go to user and then modify or implement something over here. Implements JWT subject. I guess that's not still available. I need to use and includes, I guess, Timon slash JWT auth contracts. It's not identifying this intelligence. JWT subject, I hope. Okay, it's identifying. That's pretty good. So JWT subject is handled. Now I need to include couple of functions to for our login to work with JWT auth of time. And so first function is JWT identifier. Get the identifier that will be stored in the subject claim of the JWT. We'll get to this when we start implementing the login part. And the next part is get JWT custom class, return a key value array containing any custom claims to be added to the JWT. I don't have a requirement still. I'm just going to keep it included over here. I think whenever you want to change it to, this is where you're going to configure it. So we might come here when we have done the full-fledged implementation of JWT. So this is also done. So let's go to, like I said, let's create our first endpoint. And for that, I've come to api.php within routes. This is where I'm going to add the API from JWT. So for that, I need to API. Let me go where it refer once. API.php within routes. So I'm going to use the Dingo provided API. So this is going to be from Dingo API routing router. So that's what we need. So I'm going to keep it within single quotes. This is what I need to set up our API API groups, versions, and everything. So let's start with the version v1. I'm going to keep it as v1. Version 1 of the API is what we are creating, and then pass a function. This function is going to accept this API. This is where we are going to group everything, or whenever we start implementing the APIs, this is where we're going to start with. So I'm just going to start with just the basic get call to test whether things are working or not. API.get and just going to say hello. So this hello is just going to give me a message saying I'm just going to return hello stores API. Basic message to at least test whether our API is working or not. So let me open up Postman. I have already tried out something earlier, so I'm just gonna run our server again. PHP artisan serve should run in 8002 because 8001 is 2001 is already in use, so it should ideally return. Even before that, let me show you something to see how do you actually see the API routes available. For that, you need to run at PHP artisan API routes to see all the routes already defined. So I have this hello already defined, so it is coming through this prefix API. So this prefix is coming from our api.php file. We had a prefix over here within so if you can see, API version can also be maintained here. If you are not maintaining, you can also maintaining it within your API version which we had defined within our routes over here. So if you want to have different versions of your APIs available, then that's where you will maintain it. And I was talking about the prefix, API prefix, this key. Let's go to our environment file, and you can see we have defined it as API. That's the reason it is showing this API/hello, even though we have defined it as API just hello. So that's the reason. So if once you have this here and you make a get request, it's saying hello stores API. So our API store, at least the stores API is set up right now using Dingo and Laravel. So this is the beginning. This is the basic setups to start our things, and from the coming episode we'll start implementing some of the things. So we will start with creating all the entities needed. So I'm gonna actually start doing I'm gonna create some entity diagrams to show how I'm going to approach this overall design of the databases. I'm going to use MySQL. I'm going to go with a relational database. I'm not going to use any MongoDB or anything here. And I'm going to use Eloquent to make the query. I'm not going to use DB database helper or anything, but I'm going to use models to create that. So that's the other part which I'll be working on. Then I'm going to use initially to test the application. I'm going to start with seeding some data. For that we'll start creating our database using migrations. We'll create the seeders plus factories, and then I'll show you how to seed your data. Even for images you can start seeding, and then you can test your database out. At least you can test your API like that by creating some routes and controllers. That's the next step in our tutorial episode. So this is the end of episode 1. Let's get started with episode 2 with some fundamental stuff to set up our database. So that's it from my side for this episode. Bye.